A candle's glow and lavender dust. Take a slow, steady breath. Let your shoulders settle, your jaw soften. Your hands rest gently wherever they are. There's nothing you need to do right now, nothing to fix, no tasks or thoughts to carry. You are safe, you are warm, you are here, and your mind is welcome to drift, like a leaf on a breeze, or a soft petal floating down a stream. Now let yourself imagine. Our story today begins in the quiet edge of a medieval town, a cobbled lane, damp from an early autumn rain, lanterns flickering against timber-bird walls, and the smell of distant wood smoke curling through the air. Just beyond the town square, tucked between a bakery and a mason's shop, there is a narrow wooden door with iron hinges. It's old, but well cared for. Overhead, a painted sign sways gently. It reads, Madame Calvair's Remedies and Salves. Inside, all is dim and golden. The air is thick with the scent of dried herbs, lavender, thyme, crushed rosemary, and something faintly sweet, like honey steeped in lemon. Candlelight spills in puddles across the stone floor, and long wooden shelves line the walls, each filled with small glass jars, tiny scrolls, and baskets of dried flowers. But our story doesn't begin upstairs. It begins beneath the shop, in the cool hush of the apothecary's cellar. Here, in the silence broken only by a ticking wall clock and the occasional drop of water from the ceiling beam, sleeps a cat. She is gray with pale green eyes and a small white patch on her nose. Her name is Rue, and she has lived here longer than anyone can quite recall. Each evening, as the world above begins to dim, Rue stretches from her curled spot on the windowsill, where ivy creeps along the outer wall. She pads quietly across the cool stone floor, her paw steps as silent as breath, weaving between barrels of dried rose hips and crates of wrapped loaves sent down from the baker next door. Tonight, the cellar smells of pressed violets and old parchment, and Rue, with her slow and knowing eyes, is already at work. You see, in this part of the world, apothecaries did not only craft potions for coughs or balms for aching bones, they made remedies for the spirit too. And Madame Calvair, the gentle healer upstairs, believed that Rue, her cellar cat, was part of that medicine. She claimed that a calm cat could ease grief, and that a purring one could mend a restless night. There's even a saying passed down in hushes from when the plague swept the land, where a cat curls near time, no sickness may enter. So Rue is allowed to roam freely, slipping among jars of ground valerian root and bundles of yarrow, always careful not to tip a single glass vial. This night, a storm begins to gather over the town. You can hear it faintly, a distant hush of wind pressing against the stones, like a sigh from the hills. Rue lifts her head. Her ears twitch at the sound. From above, Madame Calvair descends the wooden stairs. Each step creaks, but Rue does not move. She simply watches, blinking slowly, a gentle guardian of quiet places. The apothecary carries a lantern in one hand and a scroll in the other. Tonight, she is working on something special, a tonic for sleeplessness, made from blue poppy seeds, steeped gently in goat's milk and honey. She hums to herself, a tune with no words. Perhaps it's something she remembers from her childhood. Rue follows her, leaping gracefully onto the workbench. She does not interrupt, only settles beside the small bowl, curling her tail neatly around her paws. The candle flame flickers, casting long shadows against the wall. Madame Calvair sets her scroll aside. She takes down a jar of crushed chamomile. The scent rises in a warm cloud floral, and slightly bitter. She whispers to herself, measuring each pinch with the calm of someone who knows her craft well. Outside, the wind has picked up. A tree branch brushes the shutter like a soft knock. But down here, in the cellar's heart, all is still. The shelves groan with the weight of knowledge. Dried bundles hang from the ceiling. Sage, nettle, meadowsweet. Some tied with red thread, some with green. Each color has meaning, though most have long forgotten what they were. Madame Campfire dips her spoon into a jar of warm honey, letting it spiral into the bowl below. Rue watches with half-closed eyes. Her purr begins, soft and steady, like a lullaby with no beginning and no end. They say a cat's purr vibrates at a frequency that helps bones heal. And though no one can prove it, those who sleep with a cat nearby always seem to sleep a little deeper. A few moments later, the apothecary finishes mixing. She pours the tonic into a small corked bottle, then sets it carefully in a wicker tray beside a folded note. It's for the tanner's wife, who has not slept well since her baby was born. Rue remains still. She knows the rhythm of this place, the steady pace of candlelight and care. Madame Campfire places a gentle hand on Rue's back. The cat leans into the touch. There is something ancient in their connection, something older than the stone walls around them. Perhaps it is trust. Perhaps it is something even simpler. The wind howls louder for a moment, then hushes again. Rain begins to tap softly at the shutters like fingertips drumming on an old oak table, and still the cellar holds its peace. In the corner, an hourglass turns slowly, its sand falling in a fine golden thread. Madame Campfire begins to sort more herbs into small muslin pouches. Rue leaps down from the bench and returns to her place near the window, curling into a tight crescent. She does not sleep yet, she watches. Her green eyes shimmer faintly in the lantern light like twin leaves caught in dew. Shadows, scrolls, and the mouse that listens outside. The rain falls more steadily now. It patters gently against the leaded glass windows and the slate roof above. The world has grown soft, muffled by the storm. Inside the cellar, the air is warm with a mingled scent of beeswax and fennel root. Rue remains curled by the window, her breathing even and slow. Her ears still twitch now and then, catching the subtle creaks of the wooden beams or the rustle of the ivy pressing against the walls. Madame Campfire moves quietly, her footsteps deliberate and calm. She opens a narrow drawer in the tall cabinet and pulls out an old scroll, the parchment worn soft at the edges. The writing is in faded ink, careful and slanted. A recipe passed down from her mother's teacher and hers before that. Each apothecary has added a note here and there in the margins, adjustments, observations. Tiny hearts or stars drawn beside ingredients that had worked particularly well. Tonight, she is searching for something forgotten. A recipe for calming nightmares. In the Middle Ages, dreams were often seen as visitations omens, sometimes blessings, sometimes warnings. There were potions for dreams, charms for protection, even small sachets of herbs sewn into pillows to ward off night terrors. Rue watches as the apothecary's fingers trail across the lines of text, pausing on wanton in pale blue ink. Bethany and clove, she murmurs, with a drop of Mari smoke steeped beneath the waxing moon. She smiles faintly, remembering. That ingredient is no longer used, of course, not in this century, but there are other ways, always gentler ways. A quiet scratching sound stirs near the far wall, behind a basket of dried rose hips. Rue lifts her head. She does not leap or chase. Not tonight. She only blinks. A small mouse peers out gray, with tiny dark eyes and a slightly frayed ear. It's one Rue has seen before, many times. They have an understanding, the two of them. In old European folklore, cats and mice were sometimes said to carry messages between worlds, tiny ferrymen of dreams and whispers. And it was believed by some that a cat who did not hunt had made peace with the spirit of the house. The mouse nibbles at a dried berry, then darts behind a crate, content. Madame Campfire doesn't notice. She is still focused on her scroll, tracing each word with her fingertip, whispering softly. The candle beside her has burned low, its wax pooling in soft golden curves. There's something about the way the shadows move in the cellar that makes time feel slow. The air is still, but not heavy. It holds the silence like a deep breath, never quite exhaled. Rue stands and stretches, arching her back until every muscle feels long and live again. She moves toward the apothecary's chair and leaps onto the armrest, sitting upright, her tail gently curling along the back. Madame Caver glances over and chuckles quietly. "Well, Rue," she says softly, "shall we try valerian again?" Rue tilts her head. The apothecary rises and begins to gather ingredients. From a shelf high on the wall, she selects a small bundle wrapped in wax cloth. Inside is dried valerian root, fragrant, earthy, with a strange sweetness underneath, like freshly turned soil mixed with cinnamon bark. Valerian has been used since ancient times. Even in the 12th century, it was prized for its calming properties. Hildegard of Bingen, the great abbess and herbalist, once wrote that valerian brings stillness to the restless heart. As the apothecary crushes a bit into her mortar, Rue lowers herself into a crouch. Not to pounce, but to listen. There is something meditative in the sound of the pestle moving in slow, circular rhythm, soft crunches and swirls. The scent rises like a ribbon through the air. Outside, thunder rumbles far away, long and low, like a voice in the hills. But here, beneath the earth, the cellar feels safe and old and steady. Rue closes her eyes. She remembers when this place was filled with different voices. Apprentices laughing softly. Travelers asking for oils and poultices. Once, long ago, a harpist stayed in the upstairs room and filled the halls with song. Madame Caver hums again, absent-mindedly, a different tune now. Something Rue does not recognize, but likes just the same. The mortar is set aside. The crushed valerian is added to a muslin sachet, along with crushed hops and a few dried petals of red clover. The apothecary ties it close with a thread spun from flax, then places it in a small velvet pouch. She whispers a word over it, a word not in any language you'd find in a book, but one Rue knows, a word of protection, a word of rest. The pouch will be placed under a child's pillow later tonight, left quietly at the door by candlelight. The boy inside has been waking from dreams that make him cry without knowing why. Rue once sat beside his mother on a bench while she waited for a salve. The cat remembers her soft hands and how gently she'd scratched behind Rue's ears. Madame Caver blows out the candle. For a moment, there is only the lantern by the stairwell, casting its faint amber glow over the stone walls and low rafters. The apothecary returns the scroll to its drawer and begins to tidy the table. Rue hops down and weaves around her ankles. The woman leans down and strokes her head, her voice barely more than a breath. "Good girl." Then she climbs the stairs. Each step creaks once again, though more softly now. As if the cellar itself has grown sleepier, Rue is alone once more. But she does not sleep just yet. She pads to the edge of the workbench and gazes toward the mouse's hiding spot. No movement. Only the sound of rain. Only the smell of crushed herbs and aging wood. The hour is deepening, and in the cellar, time does not pass in minutes, but in flickers of lantern light and curls of steam, and paw steps and page turns and little pulses of breath. Rue returns to her windowsill and curls her tail around her nose. Outside, the storm rolls gently on. Segment 3. Lantern Watch and the Dreamer's Hour. The storm outside has softened now. What began as a restless hush of wind and rain has mellowed into something slower, more rhythmic. The kind of sound that seems to echo in your chest rather than your ears. The kind of rain that rocks the earth back to sleep. Inside the cellar, everything is settled. The mortar has been cleaned and shelved. The scrolls return to their drawer. The room glows only with the soft golden halo of the stairwell lantern, which casts a warm circle against the stone floor. Rue remains on her windowsill. Her back is curled like a comma, her fur rising and falling with each breath. But her eyes are still half open, and the glass before her fogs lightly with the warmth of her breath against the cool pane. Outside, the ivy sways gently. Small droplets beat along its vines. One by one, they fall. There's a peaceful rhythm to all of it. The flicker of the lantern, the soft ticking of the wall clock, the occasional tap of water somewhere far down the corridor of the cellar. This is the hour the apothecary calls the dreamer's hour. Not quite midnight, not yet the turning of the next day, but a quiet space in between when thoughts untangle and the world feels soft around the edges. It's when Rue listens most carefully. She hears the sleeping breath of mice behind the grain sacks. She hears the sound of pressed lavender shifting slightly in its jar as the air changes. And somewhere beyond the cellar walls, carried through layers of stone and soil, Rue hears the faintest hum of distant bells. They toll slowly 12 times from the abbey at the far edge of town, a sound that seems to arrive more as a memory than a noise. Low and warm, each tone carrying through the body like the echo of a lullaby once sung. Rue lifts her head to listen, not startled, only attentive. She has known these bells since she was a kitten, tucked into a satchel of sage bundles by the hearth upstairs. She listens until the last bell fades. Then she slides down from the sill, soundless. She moves with purpose now, her body close to the stone floor as she weaves past stacked crates and bundles of elderflower. Her tail brushes against hanging rosemary, releasing its sharp, pine-like scent into the air. She moves toward a small wooden door in the back corner of the cellar. It's not a heavy door. It doesn't creak. Just a smooth panel that opens to a hidden corridor one, not on any of the shop as blueprints, but known to Rue and Madame Cavard for years. Beyond it lies the herbal vault, a room older than the shop itself. A space carved deep into the earth where temperature and time have little power. Some say it was once part of a druidic root cellar. Others say it was used in secret during the plague to store forbidden cures. Whatever the truth, it is quiet now, and filled with shelves so old they lean with the weight of their contents. Jars sealed with wax, scrolls tied with faded ribbons, bundles wrapped in linen and marked with old ink symbols no one speaks aloud. Rue steps into this chamber without hesitation. A small lantern flickers in the corner, ever burning, fueled by oil scented with cedar and juniper berries. Its light is softer than the others, almost blue at the edges. She walks the perimeter slowly, brushing her whiskers against the edges of the oldest jars. She is not looking for anything in particular, only making sure that all is as it should be. There is a presence to the room, not a person, not a spirit, more like a hum, as if the herbs themselves remember every pair of hands that has ever touched them. Rue stops by a low crate stacked with dried marigold petals and hops up on top. From here, she can see nearly every corner of the vault. And that's when she sees it. A tiny feather black, sleek, and very still resting in a bowl of dried lemon balm. Not from a pigeon or a crow, but from a jackdaw. Madame Cavard had a jackdaw once. A clever one who came and went through the upstairs window. He would return each winter for a time, tapping on the shutters and leaving bits of string or bone as gifts. But it had been many seasons since Rue had seen him. She leans closer to the feather, breathing in the lemon balm beneath it. The scent is sweet, citrusy, slightly minty, uplifting and light. It blends with the cool, earthy scent of the vault and something else. A faint scent Rue remembers from her youngest days, myrrh, perhaps, or dried juniper bark. Or maybe just the memory of dust warmed by candlelight. The feather stays where it is. Rue does not touch it. She simply blinks once, slowly, and lets herself settle beside the bowl. There is something reassuring about the vault. Not because it's secret or sacred, but because it doesn't change. The air is always cool. The light is always dim, and the shelves always carry the weight of memory without complaint. Rue breathes deeply, her body relaxing again. In a small niche of the stone wall, a single sprig of rosemary hangs upside down, tied with a red string, a symbol of remembrance. And below it, scratched faintly into the stone, are 3 lines of script, They are too faint to read, but Rue remembers when they were carved.
Ah, sì, ora.